It's a group of Papua society that do the rioting for secular reform in Yogyakarta city because this Papua society called by any racist word like nigga, monkey when this Papua person was staying at some place at Jogja, and when they called the Papua society from everywhere in Jogja city, and then Papua society go to the Jogja from the Papua, but when they doing rioting, the government is still don't respond at all, even the authority, and being labeled by unclear people. And after this Papua group that the rioting is subside, the authority just secure that the mastermind of this problem, and they solve the problem through words, which is, let's say, peacefully and without causing a rioting again. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a two standard why you allowed to protest or rioting. One is when you continuously oppress, and two, when you don't have any other mechanism. Yeah, there's continuous oppress, but not all society like case on Yogyakarta city being discrimination to Papua society, because panels we have the regulations like who did the discrimination will get punishment if they do that, like enter the jail and each other. And it's not always oppressed. Let's see the case of OPM or Organisasi Papua Merdeka, like they continuously oppress. But what's going on this era? Even in there's a oppressed OPM on this area, on their area, there's a scholarship now and road construction from the government, because the government not only focus on oppress but some of peacefully protest from Papua society. And two, when you don't have any other mechanism, it's not really theirs, because the only mechanism is through education, raise awareness, that it used to be for us to learn and educate. So it's still progressing in status quo right now for this motion. Ladies and gentlemen, to the arrange for my team's point argument, and then compare and between the government team's point argument. Now come to my first point, why it's not justified that this house believes that oppressed minority groups should consider pursuing violent resistance like rioting as opposed to peaceful protest and seeking reform. Ladies and gentlemen, we know in status quo right now, like government state that there are still minority groups that pursuing violence, because that they doing the rioting, the government will look at them, will get attract for them. And then they state the characteristic of minority groups when they rioting, because they assume that if they don't make any violence or rioting, they will never look at by the government, because the minority group be seen as a nobody that not have authority for being responded at all. Panels notice that government side believe that the rioting or any violent resistance is good than harm for seek reform, forget any attract and make even better. Even though in our side, ladies and gentlemen, resorting violence is not the answer or way to seeking reform. And my point number two is what the definition of reform that being our goals here. Okay. Point number one is the reason by resorting violence is not the answer or way to seeking reform. It's also open the main open of my second point too, because violent resistance is could lead to injuries, property damage, and even loss of life, which only worsen the situation and the real efforts towards reform. It's because what I mean here about violent resistance is here all about the physical blows that bring a damage to them, such as one, injuries. It's impossible minorities group just do any violence just through words or behavior, but also can through action, because we know when minority groups feeling angry, mad, fed up, they will do whatever they want to do that can lead to injuries for people around them. Example like the class between the student of university that met a rioting because the problem of their BEM organization. When they met a rioting each other, it's increased the class between one of their groups, and then one of their groups it get injuries, maybe because being pushed by others, and then maybe not deliberate, got hit from others and each other. And two is property damage. It's damage to for the things around them when there's rioting, example by the government, and then when the society is being rioting because of the politic in front of government place, they doing rioting in front that, in front the government place this, and they damage to the facilities or property around them because to get the attract from the authority. And it's not only in front government place, at public place too. And three is loss of life. It's done strength from us to hear this damage. There's many cases such as case on 22 May 2023 that include the minority groups such as society around that area is want to seek reform about the unwarranted politics. There's a clash between them such as physical blow, urgent until make 6 people died at that location. So there's no mass violence. There's other way for seeking reform like peaceful protest. What I mean here is we can protest or complain what we don't guarantee about politics, government without taking action that lead to injuries and each other. Like there's a boy that spill or give his complaint about his area in Indonesia, which is Lampung. This boy do that because there's no response from governor to follow up or even make the area better because the area have a facilities that not guaranteed. Because his fighter fire the token on President Joko Widodo goes straight down to see by himself because governor of Lampung doesn't make any complaint about this. So I mean here we can use the technology like handphone and other for sharing or complaint about seeking reform. There's no worry, even if there's people complain but you use a bad words, it's okay, it's less likely to happen because it will be banned from the application itself and if you use bad words, so that's why it's not justified. And so is definition of reform. Ladies and gentlemen, government state that reform in their side is that the government or the authority is just include the majority group, the counting on the society. They don't think about the what happened if the authority is just handled by the majority and not regulation. Even though in our side, ladies and gentlemen, what I mean here by the reform is about the freedom of fair, sustainable, and regulation. Minority groups, even other, don't worry about the regulation in our side because in our side it's like people who resist enter the jail whom were to seek the reform, and we can increase worship place in the minority but should tolerate between minority and majority. Freedom or fair that I mean here is like the minority, they have an authority too for defend their group. Example like Papua people, they become a minority. Let's see if there's a personnel from Papua enter the DPR or government, this personnel will defend on and give a fair authority for Papua society so that not become the minority. Example like Ariel Kriting defend here his minority of Papua group when the case on Yogyakarta city. So we must give a chance or authority for one of them to the personnel from minority group to lead minority for this reform so that we can be peaceful. Even if peaceful protests don't be successful for baik response like government team said that state case Gerakan Aceh Merdeka, it's okay, it's less likely to happen because we know some of minority feel frustrated and desperate for change, and sometimes rioting can get the government attracted, but it's good if we just complain which is peaceful through the regional leaders. But panels notice that even the government itself is being discrimination between the minority and majority. So what our best case here? We don't want to lead the minority or the society around them injuries, loss of life, property damage, and make a fair between group and society for sustainable improve the lives or for all members and society. And through its minority will be looked at by government because there's nothing rioting that lead can discrimination from government to seek reform. Proud to be opposition.